I never quite knew where I stood. I found that I grew up wanting to be white or wanting to be black. Even I was like, I'd rather just be one of these other races and just not my own race. When I was sitting in a meeting, and I was the youngest person there and the only brown person in the room, and I just became very aware that it felt like I shouldn't be in the room. I had that feeling, and it almost felt like they felt like I shouldn't also be in the room. We even have it within amongst our own that we have racism, and that's the bit that I was bullied by Indians at school. I'm like, guys, we're the same. So people are going out and like enjoying the weekend and they're going to this brunch and that party and this thing, but they're not actually connecting. You know, we live in a world where we're more socially connected than ever, but at the same time not connected at all. I think it would, I know it sounds stupid, but just to talk, just to literally just say like, guys, I'm feeling stressed today. I'm feeling stressed and this is why. You know, not, oh, it's fine, doesn't matter, here's a beer. No, I'm stressed, this is what's going on. Can any of you relate?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of What's Brown Got to Do With It. So my guest today, his name is Adil Hussain, and he is the founder of Brotherhood UAE, as well as a men's health and wellness coach. So today we're going to be talking about health and wellness for men, but specifically for South Asian men. So Adil, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Very good, very good. My pleasure to be here.
So I've been watching, I haven't followed your journey for a very long time, but I was pointed in your direction through a friend, and I was going through what you've been doing, and you seem to be making a lot of waves, especially in Dubai at the moment. Tell me, how did that start for you? Like, where are you, your heritage, where are you from? How have you ended up here?
Yes, let's start there. So I was born to an Indian mum and a Pakistani dad. They met in London, and I was born and raised in Southeast London. And actually, like, just touching on what it was like for me growing up before we get into why I'm even here doing what I do, it was quite nice to hear that you got a podcast like this, because I feel like whenever I do speak to people, especially from the UK who are brown, that they struggle with this like identity crisis of, am I brown or am I white? You know, I grew up not being able to speak my mother tongue because my parents chose to not teach me and my sister how to speak Urdu, Punjabi, Hindi. Because like I could have been 4 languages within my life, you know, but I can only speak English because they didn't want me to have an accent because they felt that I would get bullied. Yeah, they thought I'd get bullied as a result of having an accent, and the truth is I got bullied anyway, you know, so for being too brown. So I always felt like I was too white for my brown friends and even for my family, and too brown for the people of Southeast London, you know, and the school I went to. So I never quite knew where I stood. I found that I grew up wanting to be white or wanting to be black. Even I was like, I'd rather just be one of these other races and just not my own race. And I think I remember reading your article. It talks about how South Asians are not painted in the best light. We're not painted as cool. We're not painted as the people to be, you know? So I really felt that. I was like, man, I wish I had like no body hair, and I wish I had an afro, or I wish just something else. I always wished for something different. I didn't really connect with my roots. And what's quite beautiful about being in the UAE is that I feel like I'm more brown than I've ever been. And it feels so nice to be here where my skin color is recognized and welcomed, you know? It's not seen as something derogatory or something to be ashamed of. And actually, I've been more involved with my culture here, both Pakistani and Indian, than I was back in the UK. I've been to kirtans, I've been to really awesome restaurants, I've been drinking karak and things. I didn't do it back home. I didn't do these things with my family, even though they did these things. So I've really enjoyed just being here and connecting with that part of myself. However, one thing I have realized is that people think I'm Arab when they meet me, and when I tell them that I'm not and that I'm Indian Pakistani, they're still like, oh. And there is a little bit of I see the micro judgment, you know, or even if it's just the confusion, whatever it might be, but I recognize it. And I wonder if any of the other listeners have also experienced things like that.
I'm sure they do.
You know,
I feel like that's, I've said this we've discussed this in a previous podcast where, you know, I do talk about like sometimes it's the need to be boxed in a way that people can accept you, because, you know, the way that South Asians, and it's really interesting that you say that you actually identify more with your identity here, because over here, that the question of like where are you really from, actually, it's more like, for me, it's been the bane of my life, right? Like, it's somebody else wanting to know my identity. In England, I'm British Asian, and that's it, and people accept me as that. But over here, people don't necessarily accept me as British, and so they have to box me into an Indian or Pakistani category, and then
Wait, but did you say British Asian?
no, I'll say I'm from England. Where are you from? I'm from England. I'm from England. No, but where are you really from? Like, okay, you want to know where my parents are from? Like, they're from India and they're from Pakistan. Like, okay, but then
Yeah,
you have to also, because you don't sound like your typical. A lot of the workers here
yeah,
are laborers. There's a lot
yeah.
of a class system here. It does exist. And so when somebody meets you, if they want to like you, they have to move you outside of the box of their preferences. I mean, that's just been my
Yeah.
experience.
Mm. I'm curious as to why you don't say I'm British Asian here, but when you're in the UK, you say British Asian.
Because over here, Asians are seen as more East Asians, and it's a very North American thing. So in North
Right.
America, Asians are East Asians. And so, yeah, people, if you say I'm a British Asian here, nobody, like, yeah, it's just
Oh, they don't
tomatoes,
get it. Okay,
tomatoes,
fair enough.
really.
Fair enough. No, no, that's yeah, that's fair. But yeah, so that was my upbringing there, and this has been a different story here. But also, I find that I don't really let it define me as much as it used
Mm,
to. I'm finding that I'm coming more into my own as who
yeah.
I am. When I was in the UK, I was working for a company, and it was a Newcastle based, so it's very much the northern part of the UK, which is more whitewashed in particular elements, especially when it came to the
Mm,
corporate world. And so I worked my way up quite quickly, and there was once when I was sitting in a meeting, and I was the youngest person there and the only brown person in the room, and I just became very aware that it felt like I shouldn't be in the
mm,
room. I had that feeling, and it almost felt like they felt like I shouldn't also be in the room. I really pushed myself in that company, and I remember there was a racist remark that was made, not to me, but just something that was said, and then there was a pause, and they like two or three of them just looked at me, and I didn't know what this term was. I had to go look it up
mm,
afterwards. Just Google this term, and I was like, wow, like it was so normal for them to speak that
mm.
way. They're just not used to having someone like me in the room, and I remember my manager saying, "Do you want to complain?" I was like, "No, there's literally 0 point in me doing this, but at least they could be aware enough to know that maybe that's not how they should speak
Do
to
you
me."
think that's changed?
But that was really no, I don't think
Oh,
that's changed at
really?
all. You know, I think racism is still there. It's in micro. I think maybe it's been phased out through the
Mm,
generations, but there'll always be generations that will uphold it. There'll always be people that will stay in there. It depends where you are in the country, where you are in the world. But as I again mentioned, you mentioned it in your article, or one of the articles, is that we even have it within
mm,
amongst our own that we have
mm,
racism, and that's the bit that I was bullied by
mm,
Indians at school. I'm like, guys, we're the same, but they didn't
mm,
seem like that. And now I can look back and think that they were probably bullied, and they just needed someone else to bully, right? But there was still that element that there was hatred within the communities, within the cultures, within the castes. Like I can't comprehend why it's so important.
mm.
Like now I'm in a place where I work with everyone, I talk to everyone. I have there's nothing in me which is inherently racist or has any kind of judgment, because we're all the same. We're all the same. And when I see it, I mean, I could almost understand it more when there's a direct color difference, black white. Okay, cool. Go, that's how you think. Go do your thing. But when we look the same,
Mm.
I don't. I feel like this is stupidity in its highest form.
It is, but it's also, I
You
think,
know.
ingrained in our upbringing and the way, our parents were brought up and raised, and the effects of like
Yeah.
colonization, and um, just being taught that white is superior, um, and so to stand out, you have to be a certain way, and so there are own
Yeah.
inhibitions that really stop us from progressing ourselves.
I know. But I've started listening to this podcast called
Oh my
Empire,
god,
and it's talking about the British Empire.
you're the second or third person to Yeah, a friend of mine.
Get into it.
Yeah, my friend Zahir actually sent it to me. He's been telling me he doesn't listen to my podcast. This is a shout out to Zahir. He doesn't listen to my podcast, but he tells me about other podcasts. So yeah, he told me about this.
But this one was a friend of mine also because I love history and I like watching and listening to history in ways that are more engaging. Like I'm always watching some kind of Hitler documentary or so, I love this stuff. But I haven't actually really dived into the British Empire and what they did, and looking at how India, Pakistan were, or India was back in the day, and how it became the way it is now, and all of it. I didn't realize that actually how small a stint it was, the British Empire in India,
Mm,
because for me, I thought it was
mm,
over a very long period of time. But they went in and did a lot in a very short space of time. So I think just to do my heritage some justice, I want to learn more.
yeah.
I don't know how much you know, but I don't know enough
I mean, I think there's
at
always more
all.
to
You know.
more to learn. But what I do
Yeah.
want to talk about is Brotherhood UAE, and what
Yes.
that basically, tell us what is that? Like, what do you do? How does it help? What is the purpose of it?
The purpose of it is to create a safe space for men to evolve, to speak up, to share their truth, to create meaningful, long-lasting relationships and friendships, um, and really to get things off their chest in a way which is it's a way for them to feel more positive about their mental health.
Mm,
The reason why this is important is because typically in for men, but especially in the South Asian community, we're programmed not to
mm,
talk. We're programmed not to speak up. We can keep the biggest secrets to ourselves, and even within families, they keep it. Shh, we don't tell
mm,
anyone. What would the neighbors say? What would the auntie say? We don't tell anyone? And what that does is it causes so much turmoil inside our minds and inside our hearts that can turn us towards substance abuse, can turn us towards just
mm.
stress, anxiety, heart attacks. The amount of heart attacks that are prevalent in our society, I don't put that down just to the ghee and all
Yeah,
the food
yeah,
that we have, but also because of the harboring of information and stress and
mm,
secrets and things that we should be talking about more. And so what I've created is a thing called a man cave where every week on a Tuesday the men sit in a circle and they all get time to speak
mm,
about whatever they want. And it's completely safe because we're all sharing and bearing
mm,
ourselves. So it doesn't really matter if your secret is big and their secret isn't. No, we're all just
mm,
talking. And when you see, I have these hand signals that the men do. So when a man's speaking and he only speaks, no one else is allowed to speak. But they can engage with the men by showing their hands or whatever. This means I feel you. I'm
mm,
sending you some love. This means me
mm,
too. And when you see 15 hands go up,
mm.
or even two, you immediately feel like you're not alone.
So how?
And loneliness is,
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I'm going to say, and loneliness is such a huge thing here in the UAE. We all come from different
Mm,
parts of the world. We all come here with a dream or a mission or something, but we've typically come here without our families or our best friends. Friends that we've cultivated and built for so long, and now we come here trying to make friendships. And I was speaking to a friend today, he goes, it's as if everyone is just behind a screen all the time, and you can't really get close to anyone. You can't develop the same kind of friendships. Not only is it transient,
mm,
but just in general, people are busy. So people are going out and like enjoying the weekend and they're going to this brunch and that party and this thing, but they're not actually connecting.
mm,
We live in a world where we're more socially connected than ever, but at the same time not connected at
mm.
all. And Brotherhood UAE also combats that part, which is let's make some real friendships. Let's connect properly. And that men within the community now are meeting up by themselves without me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey guys, where are you guys? But I like it. I love that their side friendships are coming
So
out of it.
how was it?
You know,
How easy or difficult was it to get that started? Because to get a bunch of men in a room and say, "Hey, start talking about your feelings," I can't imagine that was
yeah.
easy.
It wasn't easy. I started this now 3.5 years ago, January 2021. I started this. And I started it, first of all, by putting it on meetup.com and just posting, hey guys, we're having a man cave meetup in the park. The first meeting was in Safa Park. And I bring karak and like, we have a little tea. No
Oh
one came,
wow.
okay, for a while. Zero, no one. I have it on the beach, no one come. And there were days where I would think, I hope no one
Mm,
comes. Because it felt just like, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? I went through my own up and down journey. I had no job, by the way. This is
mm,
my job. Building this brotherhood, being a coach, this is what I do. And back then, you can imagine it's quite difficult because men typically don't want to admit that they need
Mm.
help or that they want to talk. So I had to combat all these different things. But it just became a very slow snowball over time.
Mm.
And gradually, it just started to, oh, this is cool. Wow, I didn't know this exists. How have I not known about this? And before you know it, it started to
Mm.
build up. But before it built up, I almost stopped.
Wow.
Last year in May, I thought, you know what, I'm done. I can't, this is not working. I don't understand what to do. Maybe this is just the wrong thing. Maybe I should get a job. And I ran one last barbecue in Al Qudra. I said, let me just run a barbecue for the men. I put it up, put it out. I put a little boosted little advert on Instagram, and 40 guys
Oh
showed up.
wow.
40. And I led them through a meditation, and then we talked, and we ate, and we laughed, and we joked. We had a fire, and all of them said, "This needs to stay. You can't stop this." And
So
so
what did
I
they
didn't.
say? Like what made them come in the end? Like if they didn't come to any of the others, what brought them to that particular
They
one?
didn't know about it.
Ah.
Those guys didn't know about it. Those guys didn't know. Now that they know and they see what this is and they see how I run it, I'm not running it as a coach. I'm just facilitating
Mm.
space. We're all holding space. I'm not educating you. I'm just saying, guys, let's come. Let's talk. Let's
Mm.
hold space for each other. And when they get the chance to just speak openly from their heart and they can just let it out, they already feel light.
Mm.
They feel much lighter. Um, and it also puts things into perspective. If you're going through something and you think you're so stressed, but then you hear what another man is going through, and
Mm.
it's like maybe something very like
Mm.
painful, you're like, huh, okay, maybe life isn't what I'm making it
It's
out
all
to be. Maybe I should
it's
change
all
my
relative,
perspective.
right? As well. So
It's
how
all relative.
many South Asian men turn up to this?
I think we've got about, so let's think about the community as a whole. I would say 35 to 40%.
Okay.
Say 35% are South Asian. We have some Arabs in the group as well. I think it's almost like an even split between the kind of the white
Yeah.
American, Australian, Europeans, the Arabs, and the South Asians.
Okay. And like, I really kind of want to delve into some of the things that South Asians be like we don't talk about, or
Yep.
when you're speaking about um, mental health and just stress and everything. I mean, research shows there's a huge correlation between stress and even cancer, and so the internalization of so many of those like feelings and events that happen, even as women, um, there's a lot, but women talk to each other. Men are just kind of always, they've been raised to say like you don't talk about your feelings, you don't cry, you don't show emotions. So
Yep.
what's your experience like with South Asian men? Like what are some of those conversations like that need to probably come out a lot more, be spoken about? People need to be actively having more of those kind of conversations.
Family dynamics,
Mm.
mother-in-laws, the pressure of having to do everything for the family, whether especially for those that feel like the duty of a son,
Mm.
and how they have to be everything to their parents, provide for them, do everything they can, plus with their partners and the kids, which is typically what we kind of just do. But I think it's the lack of reciprocation, the lack of appreciation that they feel that they get from their families as to what they're doing it for, and also feel that they can't stop and that this is their because they have to do
Mm.
things rather than feeling that they get to do it. They do feel this burden of pressure, this burden of responsibility, um, a lot of family politics that comes up, things they don't want to do but they have to
Mm.
go, like something as trivial as attending a wedding that they don't want to attend, or having to uh, pay respects to people that they don't care
Mm.
about, and it feels like if they have an opinion or feeling that falls outside of culture, that they're labeled black sheep, something wrong with
Mm.
them. It's just they're the worst person in the world. And it's, I think those that come here away from the family, they feel a little bit of a
Mm.
lightness, but then they have the guilt of leaving their
Mm.
families and the guilt of leaving mum and dad, for example. I had that. Like, I'm not with my mum and dad, and I know that they feel it, and I feel it. I'm trying to build something out here, and it's a challenge.
Mm.
It's a challenge to know that I'm doing what my parents did, where they left their countries to go to the UK for a better life.
Mm.
I'm doing the exact same thing, but they somehow don't always comprehend that. They're like, just come home.
Yeah.
UK is fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So so there's that, and there's definitely the thing between the husband and wife talks. So a lot of the time, relationships are talked about a lot in the man cave, and it's the feeling that they can't express their whole truth to their partner because they won't get it.
Mm,
They just won't understand, you know. And there's certain things around um, how money is spent. It's one thing. How to raise kids. That's another thing. Um, Spending time together, quality time, something that they're not talking about enough. Intimacy, something else that they struggle with. There's everything you can imagine is talked about. I had one person tell me that they have an argument with their wife because it came out years later that they didn't have a certain qualification that they said that they did when they got married.
right. Who the
And even
wife
though this
didn't
man
or
is
the
bringing in the money,
husband didn't?
the wife
Okay,
didn't, the husband didn't have the
right.
qualification. And the husband's like, I've been supporting this family for quite some time now, and apparently it's like such a big
Yeah.
deal. And I get there's like the lie, but it's not. It doesn't. The gravity of the consequence doesn't match what has happened. But yeah, mother-in-law talked about a lot. That's a huge
So
one.
what do you find?
I think that comes on both
Oh,
sides.
yeah, that will always. If it's not your mother, it's your mother-in-law.
Yeah,
But what do you see like the difference between? Were you doing this in the UK as well, or was it like just when you started here? But you must have been having conversations
just
when you were in the UK, right?
yeah. My family, right? Like, my family are Indian Pakistani. The difference. So I've always been the black sheep. So I've always been able to just be this guy. I do what I want.
Mm,
I will do what I want. I don't subscribe to some of the things that the culture dictates. That's not me. Out of respect, I do certain things, but I'm not going to do certain like the example of the wedding. I'm not going to go. Like I don't. They don't know me. I'm not going. I don't care. But look, the stress of finances doesn't get talked about enough.
mm,
When men are struggling to pay certain things and or the addictions to abuse to
mm,
substances very high, especially in the kind of the Indian side of my family, and or just seeing that Indian culture in general, it can go down that road very quickly. That's not talked
mm,
about, you know. And certain cultural norms are passed down through the generation. I can see it happening from like the elder generation down to like cousins and everything. I'm thinking, guys, we got to stop this
mm,
here. We have to stop this now. You're aware enough. Don't follow this. Don't follow what's been done by your uncles and these guys. We have to change it. And I am seeing the same thing. The way that South Asian men in the UK are the same wherever they are. They're not talking. They're not talking. They're not managing their health or their wellness in any way whatsoever. Huge
mm,
subsectors. I'm not saying everyone. I can't say this, but there are huge sectors of these men that aren't taking care of themselves.
mm.
Well, they fall in the same patterns, and they want to be nothing like their dads, but they become
Like their
everything like
dads,
their
yeah.
parent.
I mean,
They become exactly the same.
self awareness, or the lack of. I think it's always easy to point the finger at somebody else. But just going back to like my own experience, with we're talking about men, like men from England, and after moving here and interacting with men from even the subcontinent, like from India, Pakistan, I've just found a huge difference between them. I do find like a lot of my Pakistani male friends here, like from Pakistan, are a lot more open minded, um, than even a lot of my like South Asian friends in England.
I'm not finding that.
Really?
I'm seeing the
That's
exact
so
same. Yeah,
interesting.
there's a couple of guys that I've managed to get to come to the circle who are from India, Pakistan, and they come but they struggle.
Mm,
You know, I find it that they typically go into storytelling about life and business and this, but they just can't get into the heart.
mm,
And even if you try to go there, like I tell you a bit more about this and how you feeling this, it's like no feeling. I don't. What is feeling? We don't do this. Especially there's a few of the older guys. I think maybe I could do better to maybe try and speak to some of the younger
mm,
generation. I would love to speak to the teens. I think the teens are more clued up.
mm,
The new age teenagers and those at university. If you probably find that as well. They seem more open and willing to talk about their
mm,
feelings and how they're doing, and also having the tools. The other thing that is rife is anger
Mm.
and not managing the anger. And again, that's taught stuff from our parents. Seeing angry dads and that generation above ours, probably a bit more physical in their outwardly expression of their anger. And yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it even this generation. And they get so angry they don't know how to manage it. And I wanna help these men.
Yeah, I think,
If they can understand where it comes from, they can deal with
yeah.
it.
I do think with this generation, though, they're just taught differently. They're actually taught to question, they're taught to express themselves, they're taught to, you know, be able to say no. They're empowered to say no. We weren't empowered to say no. And it was funny, I was having a conversation with somebody recently just about, you're taught like don't talk to strangers, and like we teach our kids all of this stuff. And then, growing up, you're like, oh, go and hug so and so, and go and hug that uncle and say hello to whatever, and you just feel really like uncomfortable. And you
Yeah,
just think like, but why? And I think you brushed on the point as well about the force of having to meet people that you don't necessarily want to. It's the same with even like family members and stuff. Not cutting out toxic family members, and not recognizing like, okay, what value do these people bring to my life? Just because we're
yeah.
related by blood, it doesn't mean that it's okay, that you need to be in my life all the time.
So now, so now think about how being taught these things from a young age, right? Go do this because you have to, because so and so will be upset, because I said so. All these little things following the norm. Now think about how that affects you as an adult. Okay, so as an adult, I struggle with confrontation. I struggle to say no. Struggle to set boundaries. Not only does that affect your romantic relationships, but it will affect your work relationships, your friendships, everything. What does that do on a soul level? Your soul says this doesn't feel right. Your outwardly actions are doing the opposite, or that creates inner turmoil, stress, anxiety. And also you're taught not to speak, so you're bottling all that inside. What happens? It's going to come out somewhere. You're either going to explode or you're going to implode. It's only two ways it's going to happen. Men will do either
Yeah.
or. So you're either going to be angry, aggressive, shout, and you'll explode. And to the other person, they'll think, where did this come from?
Yeah.
To him, it's been a
Yeah.
coil just getting pushed down this whole time and it's only gonna one day, just like that tip of the iceberg, the straw that broke the camel's back, every cliche you can imagine that's gonna come out my mouth right now. Any one of these apply, you know? We're being taught the wrong things. And then now my work with these men is to help them see it and then reframe it, undo it, and then create new habits. That's the hard part. How do you undo 30 years of being a certain way? It takes time. That's why coaching and things are so important. Even going to get therapy is so important. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's like, wouldn't you like to be more free? And one of the biggest things that men want from life is to be free. Freedom is the key word for men. That's why when they get to go, I don't know, maybe they get to go on holiday or they just get to go with the boys, that moment represents freedom. We just, that's what we love most, more than anything. But many of us are living caged lives where we're actually
But
not
that's
free.
really
We're not
sad.
free to be who we
Yeah,
want.
but that's really sad. Like if you're
Yeah,
in a marriage, for example, and you don't feel free, or that you feel like you're being kind of, held down by your partner.
it's more common than you think. It's so much more common than you think. I think every married man that I have in the men's group, okay, let's see, maybe 75% of them, they feel that they can't speak their truth to their partner of the married men.
And then, but
So there's no safe
But
space.
then, how does that work in the sense that, okay, so you're working with the men and, you're helping them to like speak their truth, but they can only speak their truth or feel empowered to speak their truth if it's being accepted on the other side, right? So, for example, if you're a couple and you speak your truth and you go home and your wife just goes apeshit on you for speaking your truth, you're naturally going to be like, this isn't working out for me.
Exactly. But at least they can feel far more sure of themselves and what they're thinking and feeling. So the men that come to my circle and join the brotherhood, they're more aware. They know what they really think and what they really feel, which means when they do express themselves, because they now can articulate it better to them, they know in their hearts of hearts that what's happening on the other side isn't fair. It's not right. Whereas normally what happens is when there's confrontation, men will either explode or go silent because we don't know what to say. So because we don't know what to say, we can't fight back. We don't even know what we feel. And women are usually very fantastic and great at knowing what they feel
Mm.
and then expressing it. And we're like, we don't. We just get confused. So we shut down, we retreat, and then we say sorry. And we don't even know why we're saying sorry. But normally we're saying sorry just to kind of cool the situation and go back to a place of peace. Go back to what we want, freedom. Second thing we want is peace. Peace and freedom, those two things. And we will do whatever we can to bring us back down to a place of peace, especially when there's confrontation. But if we can go back to our partner and say, look, this is how I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling about what you said and what's going on. This is how I think we should approach it, or like when will be a good time for us to speak, and let's take things to let's go a different way of dealing with this time. The more that's done, eventually the partner will see that, okay, maybe it's me. Maybe I have to handle things differently.
Mm.
But if the man never even gets to that point because he's arguing or he's defensive or he's running away, you keep going through the cycle. And this is very high with the South Asian men. We just we throw some money at it, or we go silent, or we explode, or I don't know, physical abuse may happen. We can't live like this. So bringing awareness, knowing what they're thinking, knowing what they're feeling, speaking about it to the boys. So when you've got a bunch of 15, 20, 30 men, and you can talk about what's happening at home, and you've got all these guys that listen, we also share what's happening in our life. And maybe there's a different way of approaching things. Or maybe we got to tell him, listen, it's not that big a deal. Relax. It's like having an actual tribe
Mm.
of men of all different ages. Our youngest boy is 21. Our oldest is 56. Imagine the wisdom that you can share in that
Mm.
group. That's missing. That our elders would do this, right? The old tribesmen. This is how they would be. The men would sit, the women would sit, and the men would share stories, and the kids would learn so much
Mm.
from their elders. This is what I'm trying to
But I
bring back.
like that normalizing these kind of conversations for men because, yeah, amongst women, it is quite normal. Like you'll have your tribe of women or your friends, and you'll pick up the phone and you'll say, I'm pissed off, and he did this or whatever and stuff. But I mean, I remember even with my ex husband, he used to like that man could hold shit in for years. And he would like one day, like 10 years ago, you said this, and I'd be like, wow, like you're really still holding on to that. And it's just unhealthy for everyone around you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so what's interesting when you're saying working with the younger generation, so like my son, I see that he has a lot of the traits from his dad. And one of my biggest like worries about my son is that he doesn't communicate. And I sit there, so I'm blue in the face, trying to say, just talk to me, tell me how you're feeling, like it's okay to react. And he has just no reaction. So how do you deal with, unconditioning? Because I feel like there are core traits, right, that people just have, like they're introverted or extroverted, and sometimes you can't change these things. How do you tackle with something like what would you advise me?
for you to be vulnerable. One, for you to speak to your son from your heart about your life and how you're feeling and how you're doing. Mummy feels pretty low today. I feel sad. Or, whatever it might be. The bullet train to this is for you to be that person first. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. Next thing is for him to be in scenarios with other guys, other male elders. I don't know if he's got anyone else who's not family, like a martial arts. 100% martial arts is great for every kid.
Mm.
There's an academy here called the Warrior Academy. Really, really cool. They do not just martial arts, but they have this thing called around character development. And they really encourage this stuff. The kids to open up and share and talk, and especially when you go through things like sports and martial arts, your body will do things, and your mind will be screaming at you, no, but you still find a way through it, and emotions come out, crying, whatever, shaking, whatever might come, and it's beautiful to witness. But you have to find a way to bring him out of his mind and back into his body. So that's just the other thing. So role models, some kind of movement, martial arts, sports, where there's a male coach. They typically have a very nice bond. And then for you to be the one that's vulnerable.
Oh, I'm vulnerable.
Do you speak
It's not
to your
like
son
I'm
about
blue in the face.
you
Yeah,
are?
yeah, yeah. I mean, my son, by the way, he's about to be 16, so he's not like a kid. And so, I'll be like, they're pouring my heart out. And then I'll be like, so that, how do you feel? And I'm like, okay. And it's just really frustrating because I want to be able to empower him to be able to speak and, not to internalize, because I did see that with his dad, and I know that that's not healthy, and there was not a healthy outcome for that. So
How do you know that he doesn't speak to someone else?
he's just not very good at expressing his feelings. I do. I mean, I can't say too much because he'll listen to this and then he'll know where I get my information from. you know, People talk. We all talk to each other. Everyone knows what's going on.
All right, cool. So,
But yeah,
all right, fine. Well, hopefully he's got some outlets. Maybe there's a girl that he knows, or there's a couple of boys. Like, I don't know. I'm sure that he's got his way of, maybe he writes. I don't know. Um,
I wish, but I know
I'm
I
sure
know
he'll
that there's
figure
a
it.
lot of like parents, for example, in my situation, and I have friends, and we often talk about this, like how do you get your kids to open up to you? How do you get your kids to feel comfortable to understand that their space with you is safe? Like I remember once I said to Aman, to my son, that if you're in trouble, would you think, oh shit, mum's going to kill me or mum's going to save me? And straight away he said, without hesitation, he said, mum's going to save me. I said, okay, fine, as long as you know that I will
Yeah,
always
that's
save
good.
you, we're okay. Because the minute you start thinking, even now, I've got my own kid, and even now, when I do think, I'm shit, my dad's gonna kill me, I still think it like shit, my dad's gonna kill me, and it's this sense of validation. I think it's a generation thing as well. Like men have gone through it, but women also have gone through it. This whole need to South Asian women to please your parents and stay on the right side and feel validated by everything that you're doing. So even though men have that whole thing about being a husband, being a father, the breadwinner, finances and stuff, women also have equally a lot of pressure on them to maintain a house, to maintain marriages, like all the compromises and raising the children. On top of that, working, proving yourself at work as a woman. It's so intertwined
Yeah.
that I feel like I don't know if you can have one without the other. So is there scope in the brotherhood to bring in some sisterhood elements to it?
What would you say that looks like?
I would say that a separate, you could have like a separate sisterhood thing, and you could have the brother, like the men and the women, but actually bringing them together and having a conversation, like a topic, and just listening to different points of view. So every month or something, a different theme, and just everyone going around and talking about their point of view on that. I think there's a lot that men don't necessarily understand also about women, and vice versa. And so in my opinion, like just that basic understanding is the foundation to making any of those improvements. Because you don't have that.
We have, yeah, we have a collaboration
Ah,
with a women's group in Dubai called Women Who Thrive. And Women Who Thrive is a women's group, networking group that they do great things. They've got all kinds of events and talks and things that they do. And every month, Brotherhood UAE and Women Who Thrive connect. We have once a presentation and then a conversation. So exactly like what you're
that's
saying.
so interesting.
So yes, we're doing that. And really, like you said, to have conversations where we can bring in all sides,
Yeah.
you know, to foster healthy collaboration, healthy communication. And sometimes it's easier to talk to a female stranger than it is to talk to your female partner. And it shouldn't be the case.
Hmm.
But more often than not, it is easier, you know, for men to do that. And I want to change that.
Hmm. I mean, do you think it's a long way to go? Do you think you're getting there? Do you think like this is just the beginning? What's the vision? What's
This is
your vision?
yeah, this is just so this is just the beginning. Right? Look, Brotherhood UAE as a company is relatively new. I'd say even though I've been doing it for 3 years, I'd say this last 12 months has been where things are starting to happen. It's being recognized. We're getting a lot of attention, a lot of traction, not just from like the men, but also like from
Hmm.
Dubai, TV, radio, all these kind of things. We've got a documentary coming out about well, we are heavily featured in the documentary, which is fantastic. It's going to be huge. Um, But the future of it is that we're going to go from 100 men to thousands of men. This is, I want this to be almost like a school, a full-on tribe where we involved in so many things, not just the education of ourselves, but also things around charity work, working with kids, and redefining masculinity for the generations behind us, and what it means for them. Masculinity itself has been dragged through the mud over these last few years by a particular set of people that have, I think, ruined it in the YouTube space. Kids are seeing certain things that are not healthy, and I want to redefine it.
Mm.
I want to show what masculinity really can be and what it should be. I don't. I get a lot of rap for this, but I don't believe in toxic masculinity, because I believe that masculinity in itself can never be toxic, because it's wholehearted good stuff.
Mm.
It's men being a good man. And don't get me wrong, masculinity involves is also part of women too, right? It's actually genderless.
I was about to
But
say,
speaking about men that,
is there an
yeah,
actual
men
definition
that
of it?
are, they're varying definitions of masculinity, and I think the definition of masculinity that's in the dictionary is more related to men, but it's not
Mm.
true, right? But when I think about masculinity, it's about the direction, the purpose, the drive, responsibility, accountability, integrity. These are seen as masculine traits, but not manly
Mm.
traits, masculine traits. Where femininity is about flow, creation, divinity, those kind of things. Again, men can have those traits, it doesn't matter. But when we think about the heterosexual world, that men that are trying to move towards more masculine energies, it's about, are you a man of accountability and integrity? Do you have a purpose and a vision?
Mm.
Can you take care of what's happening around you? But if you have no one to take responsibility for, are you responsible for yourself?
Mm.
Are you the same man behind closed doors as you are out in the streets and when you're out in public? Have you got a vision? Are you a man of your word? There's all these little things that kind of play into it. And when I like to work with men on these different areas, if I can tick these things off, and this is what I try to instill with my men, their lives will improve significantly. And so will the lives of those in their periphery, the women, the children, the friends, the
Mm.
family, and they will feel better.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to do. So the vision is huge. I still think it's still developing, it's still evolving.
Mm.
Eventually, we'll have our own academy. We'll have schools. We'll have a charity arm. I want to. I want us to be seen as the men that are
Yeah.
gentlemen.
I mean, it's fantastic. I think
Yes.
it's long overdue, just like for men to be able to feel comfortable and free to have these conversations. But just before we
Yeah.
finish off, then, like when it comes to South Asian men, like what is the one prominent conversation that you think that needs to be had? Like if you sat down in a room with a bunch of 30 South Asian men and you had to choose one thing to talk about, what would it be?
I think it would. I know it sounds stupid, but just to talk, just to literally just say, like, guys, I'm feeling stressed today. Stress. I'd say stress.
Mm.
I'm feeling stressed, and this is why. Not, oh, it's fine, doesn't matter. Here's a beer. No, I'm stressed. This is what's going on. Can any of you relate? Just that. And if 30 South Asian men did that in a circle, and without any alcohol or anything else, no glass of wine, and there was a bunch of Me Too's, that man would go home feeling far better.
Mm.
He'd go home knowing that I'm not the only one going through this. And if they can just recognize that they're not the only one going through it, and that at some point we have to break the generational
Mm.
curse of staying silent, you will feel free and happy, and you go back to your families even stronger, and you feel good about yourself. And the final thing I'll say is, please, 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 take care of your health. There is nothing more important than the health of your body and the health of your mind. And if you're not doing these things, then you're good to no one. I'm sorry.
Mm.
Doesn't matter how much money you got in the bank. You can't take none of it with us.
True.
You do far better if you took care of your health, and you'll be able to provide for your family for many, many years to come.
Mm.
Develop some tools that will allow you to feel less stress, meditation, breath work, go for a run, work out, build some muscle, take care of what you're putting in your body, and you'll see how your mind feels. Get some good
Mm.
sleep. All the basic
We
stuff.
don't know about.
The
Mm.
basic stuff works. But it
It
works.
does. I remember
Anyway, I could talk about
when my son,
forever.
after my divorce, then my son was really struggling, and I wanted him to see a therapist. And I mean, he's still young at the time, and he was like, I don't want to talk, I don't want to do it. And so I had to explain to him that, listen, when you're not well, we go to the doctor, right? Like you'll get a body checkup, we'll go and find the root of the problem. your mental health is just as important. It's linked to everything. So all your body functions are linked to your brain and to your mental health. So you're just going to see a doctor about your mental health as opposed to, the normal GP that you see. And that's what got him to her. So he agreed to meet her and said, if you don't like it after one session, you're fine. Like, you don't have to do it again. And he did. He liked it. And, that was one person he did talk to.
Nice.
But I think that to my point is that the mental health, especially in men, it's so important for them to acknowledge that it is a thing. Like, it is okay to get therapy. It is okay to feel
Yeah.
overwhelmed with stress. It is okay to want to do something about having a better life and creating boundaries. And I think, in South Asians in general, those would be like my top 3 things that I would tell any South Asian, women as well. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, do those things.
More love, guys. Just for those out there in relationships, marriages, to cut each other some
Yeah,
slack.
it's give yourself
Really,
some grace.
some of the things are not that big a deal. Just come back to love. Come back to what's important. Some of these things that we argue about and we get frustrated about don't matter. They won't matter. In the grand scheme
In
of
the grand
things.
scheme of things. But again, back to the beginning, it's all relative. So when you're going through it,
Yeah.
then towards the end of my marriage, I had marriage counseling from a guy, and he was fantastic. Like, this man was fantastic. And he used to say to me that you need to change your perspective on how you're dealing with things. So, and this one's like for the women on the way to kind of handle men as well. And it really helped me. So he said,
Yeah.
you walk in through the door, okay, and you've got shopping bags or whatever. You open the door and you see your husband sitting on the couch and, he's on his phone. And within 3 seconds of you opening that door and seeing him, you've made up a story in your head. Like, he's always on the phone, he's probably texting somebody, blah, 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 blah. And now you're pissed. But the reality is that he just got a really urgent work call. Boss wants him to send something out really, really urgently. And he's really just focusing on that. And so the stories that we create in our heads don't always match the actual, or the narratives that we create aren't actually true to the situation. And sometimes focusing on the good things, like, okay, my husband
Yeah.
didn't put the washing out, or I asked him to throw the garbage out and he didn't, but forgetting that actually, he just cleaned the house, he just washed the dishes and he did whatever and stuff. That really, really, I felt like that was my biggest takeaway from
Yeah.
my therapist, and just, how to view people and life in general. So my 2
I
cents.
love it. Perspective. I love it.
So before we finish, I ask all my guests that, what
Yes.
does being brown mean to you? So what's brown got to do with it for you?
Lately, it's been karak tea. It's my chai. That's become imperata. But really, it's the diverse nature of our cultures, and seeing how similar we all are. That being brown, especially being brown here, I got to experience all different types of brown. Every single shade of tea has been experienced, and I love it. And I think just I connect with more of what brings us together. But even the things that are different make me excited now, you know. And I have developed a much healthier relationship with my brown than I had before. And so brown to me is proud.
Does it make you feel like a sense of belonging now?
Now I feel more belonging here than I did back home. Apart from missing my family, of course.
That's nice. They can visit. Everyone wants to come to Dubai. But Adil, thank you so much. This was such an interesting conversation. I feel like it's one that we could just go on forever and ever. There's so much to talk about, and maybe we'll do it.
Part 2.
Yeah,
Watch the
exactly,
space.
for sure. But thank you. And for anybody listening, do you want to tell them how they can get in touch with you, how they can connect with Brotherhood?
Best place. Yes, best place on Instagram is Adil Coaches Men is my personal page, and Brotherhood UAE is the group page, and also brotherhooduae.com. So if anyone is in Dubai, even if you're in Abu Dhabi, come down sometime and come see us. Every Tuesday we have a face-to-face meeting, 8 p.m. And then every Wednesday we have an online man cave. So we have to, no matter where you are in the world or in the UAE, you can connect with us on Wednesday evening. 8
That was my next question. So if somebody's in the UK, how would they connected with you. So through that,
Yep.
perfect. And then
Yep.
hopefully we're going to get you to Abu Dhabi and open up
Yes.
Brotherhood here. I can already think of like
Yep.
so many people to send to you, send your way.
And location. Help me find a location where we can hold the space, and we'll do it.
Okay, I have one already in my head, so there we go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. Well, thank you,
Perfect.
and I will definitely be speaking to you very soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much. See you.